Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I hope that y'all are having a great summer solstice, first and foremost, because this is the time of the year when the sun is doing its thing. Summer is upon us, and we're very much in this solar plexus energy right now. And so I wanted to talk about something that I'm calling the will to thrive. So I've been doing this work as a workplace wellness coach. That's kind of how I started my professional healing path, was actually supporting folks with healing from workplace trauma. And I still do that, but I've definitely branched out more into personal spiritual development just because that's kind of where my journey has taken me. But a big thing that we are doing as we deprogram from the false matrix, or what I like to call grind culture, this feeling that we constantly always need to be productive in order to be valuable, in order to be considered worthy. Once we deprogram that, then it means that we are in a position to remember what it means to thrive. And literally when I say remember, I'm really thinking about remember. Like if you can envision that there's just lots of different soul fragments that you need to pick up along the way, either through past life trauma, through current life trauma, through inner child healing, what have you. Something that we train ourselves to do on this ascension path, on this healing journey, is to remember thriving and to actually reclaim our will to thrive. And when we think about the false matrix and grind culture, they do a lot to actually harm our solar plexus, which is known as our inner sun. And so we can think about the colors yellow as well as orange when we think about the solar plexus area. But one thing that happens actually on our ascension path, and some of y'all may have been intuiting this already. So something that happens is that you actually get out of the traditional 7 chakra system. And what you're going to start learning, or maybe something you've already been learning on your healing path, is that the chakra system has actually been utilized a lot to energy harvest in the false matrix. So a lot of folks that I work with have issues as it relates to their throat chakras, for example. And that's because a lot of times people who are inclined to be healers or intuitives, many times what happens is that they've taken vows of silence. They have had memories of past lives where either they or their ancestors were ostracized, where sometimes their lives were taken for their ability to heal, all right, for their ability to see beneath the surface. So a lot of times the throat is one of the things that are usually under attack, but I would actually go further and go from the throat to the entire diaphragm. Like this particular area tends to have a lot of etheric machinery, something I call like etheric implants. Maybe y'all have been learning about that. If not, definitely take some time to really think about not just deprogramming your thoughts, not just deprogramming your emotions, but also the literal machinery that you may have inherited from different trauma timelines, right? That are still playing out within your DNA that you might need to heal. But it's usually this particular area, so like from the throat to this, what they call the solar plexus, where there's a lot of damage that we need to heal. And a lot of that has to do with reclaiming our will to thrive. So I know you've been in this position. Everybody who's kind of been in this human experience has at least been in this position a couple times, where you know that something is good for you, but you just don't want to do it, right? Like you want to do the opposite of what's good for you. You know, there's this almost like there's this program that we need to deprogram around this like feeling that we need to self-destruct, right? And that's a real thing. There's literal programs running in our DNA to get us to self-destruct, to get us to stay in cycles of trauma, to keep us in fear, to keep us in woundedness, to keep us in shame. Because when we are in those programs, We're much easier to control. We're much easier to be harvested off of because we're not in our power, right? We're not in our, we're not reclaiming the power of our inner sun, okay? And so that means that on this ascension path, there is the warrior that must awaken within each and every one of us to reclaim and choose our will to thrive again and again and again, all right? And as you are on this ascension path, outside of the throat, which is a lot of times is under attack, and we're doing a lot to clear throat chakra blockages, and it takes time, but also the solar plexus. And so the false matrix has been built a lot upon the inner child, the wounded inner child, and it starts at a really early age. And a lot of times little things have happened, little to big things have happened to our inner children, either in the waking state or a lot of times in the dream state, which has caused our souls to fragment and to be left on certain planes of reality, certain dreamtime planes, which have, sometimes they're literally like hell realms. So one thing that I'm really big on is getting into your Akashic records. If you're on this healing path, don't pay somebody to go into your Akashic records for you. Learn to do it yourself. If you are like, well, I don't know, if you're not sure, like push past those barriers and start with a smaller guided meditation practice. Like if you don't meditate every day, that's okay. Start 15 minutes a day, then keep like leveling up the time that you do and that you dedicate to it. But once you start getting into your Akashic records, one thing that you are going to be doing as you ascend and as you bring back all those pieces together again, it's like that Humpty Dumpty sort of fable thing where they're like, you know, you just imagine how like Humpty Dumpty like basically got shattered, right? And they had to like put all his pieces back together again. A lot of times that's our soul. Our souls are in a really great state of fragmentation. And it's not something to be ashamed of, really. You know, sometimes when we wake up from the illusion of the false matrix, sometimes we're looking around at people and we're calling people NPCs, or we're calling people karmics, or we're calling people soulless. But on some realm or dimension, a lot of us are still reclaiming our souls, even the ones who consider themselves to be high-level healers. Like, we're not fully whole and complete because so much has been done over hundreds of thousands of years, not only to us, but to our ancestries, to take away our power. And the best way I can describe this is, you know, we see vestiges of ancient civilizations where we're like, how did they build those things? Or like, why were those people so tall? Or you know, there's these legends around humans being able to live a really long time. Well, what happened? You know, what happened to humanity during that time to now, right? So now it's like we're lucky if we can live to be 90 years old. There's been legends of humanity being able to live hundreds of years old, maybe even older. There's been these weird legends around giants and that sort of thing. People literally used to be bigger and taller. What happened to us? We can just look at the physicality of things and just in terms of like health and well-being. Then there's also that thing around, like if y'all follow Atlantis or Lemuria, that sort of thing, you might have heard about people just being more tapped into their power. And if you are a healer, you're probably like reclaiming some of yourself from the times of Atlantis and Lemuria. A lot of trauma happened during that time. So, but you might have memories of past lives where you were way more tapped into your healing abilities. We got to ask ourselves, what happened? Okay. So now the will to thrive is us putting back the pieces together again around what happened for us to be in such a fallen state. Now we're living to be, if we're lucky, 90 years old, and that's a good narrative. Now we just have a lot of different things that we're contending with, and you know, we can just look in society. We see that, you know, suicide rates and that sort of thing is increasing. We see that there are just self-destructive behaviors in our society that feel like they're on the up, like when we think about addiction, the level of addiction that we experience as a society. And a lot of times like that, I don't see addiction as something to be like ashamed of or to shame someone for, because all of us have battled addiction in one way or another, or are battling addiction in one way or another, navigating the false matrix. The way I see ascension is like you give up each vice, you know. It's you give up so much, you end up like really give up so much. Oh, hold on, let me see what folks are saying. Hello to everybody joining in. Can people come into the room? Can I read them? No, and I'm really not trying to, just because that would be really overwhelming, I think, to like read the energy, you know. Like, I don't know, the way I see it is like I'm here to kind of share like a message, and the folks that are here to receive will be here, you know, and we'll just kind of vibe out. But I don't want to take on so much of people's energy, so I don't really try to tap in that particular way. But all that to say, like, the will to thrive, how do we reclaim it? So one thing is, I would say it's important to learn about the 7 chakra system, but if you are centering your healing journey and your healing path on the 7 chakra system, I would encourage you to go a little deeper. The 7 chakra system has been utilized to siphon our energy, okay? Because we have been raised in a society to not really learn about the chakras, first of all. And because we don't have the education as it relates to it, a lot has been done to kind of siphon our energy. And it's been done on a subconscious level. So I've said this many times in different talks that I've done around, like, remember that the conscious mind is 10% and the unconscious mind is 90%. The false matrix trains us in the 10%. Going to school, having our jobs, doing a lot of the 3D stuff, that's the 10%. Our ascension path is really reconciling the 90%. And when we do that, it's a lot of labor. It's a huge labor of love. It's also the hardest thing that we're ever going to do. We need to have the will to thrive, and to have the will to thrive, a lot of times it means rethinking what popular culture, popular narratives are saying that we should be putting our attention in on. And on top of that, it also means a very intensive program, a deprogramming process. And this a lot of times requires us to say goodbye to relationships that are not healthy for us, that aren't really good for us, that sort of thing. To say goodbye to habits that aren't good for us, jobs, living situations, relationships, etc. Right? So it's hard work. So we need to have the will to thrive and have a vision outside of the current system that we may be residing in. Now, something that happens as we ascend, and I'm getting this information from a website that I've mentioned already. It's called Aligning with Earth. These are channeled messages, literal like channeled workbooks. So if y'all are really serious like on this ascension path, definitely get on that website and start reading and doing the worksheets. There's a lot of them. You know, it's a lot of time. It's a huge time investment. Once again, we tap into our will to thrive, okay? But a lot of times our solar plexus has been overridden through trauma, a lot of times trauma from the wounded child. And so to reclaim our will to thrive, we need to reclaim soul fragments and pieces of our soul. If you are interested in soul retrieval and what that concept is, you can actually join my my YouTube channel. I have a free meditation, soul retrieval meditation. I have like different meditations and subliminals if you're looking for guidance as it relates to that. And if you're seeking to go deeper, I have a Patreon where I do like really deep guided meditations, and there's some in particular around healing the inner children, because you have inner children a lot of times that need to be fetched from different places where you may have experienced extreme trauma in your childhood, whether in the waking state or in the dream state, because there's a whole other world that goes down in dream time, okay? And, you know, I always like to say, as above, so below. So you know how like we talk about missing children, like how there are missing children and stuff, and child abduction is a thing, human trafficking is a thing. So that is a very important thing to place our energy and time into. Don't get me wrong. And I would also always say, as above, so below. So for Simp Solo, the website is called Aligning with Earth. So just type in aligningwithearth.com and it'll show up. But, you know, as above, so below. So just like we talk about missing children and like needing to support children on the physical plane, well, let's think about our inner children. We talk about reconnecting with our inner child, but in all actuality, we have inner children. So we got to think about inner child healing from a very multi-dimensional approach. And so if you are somebody who is trying to heal trauma in childhood, or you're trying to reclaim your inner child, you may have felt as though you've been coming at a wall with like inner child meditations. And a lot of times it's because your inner child is going to look different at age 1 than it will at age 13. And then there's always an inner masculine and an inner feminine. So you even want to think about, like, start looking at inner child healing as reclaiming your tribe. Okay, so the way that it works is like starting from age 0 up until whatever age you are now, you have an inner masculine and an inner feminine for each age or each year of your life. Okay, so if you're doing inner child healing, start calling it inner children healing. You're reclaiming your inner children, and you might want to go into the depths of your subconscious mind and look at the state of your inner children, the inner feminine and the inner masculine, from ages 0 to 18. And you will be very intrigued about what you find. I'll give you an example. When I was kind of going on this journey, first of all, I'm very in my feminine energy, or so I thought, but it was really interesting for me to find that my inner masculine was way more present during my inner child healing, or inner children healing, than my inner feminine was. And a lot of that's because, like, in our society, we're kind of like trained to value the masculine traits more. And so I had to like pull my inner feminine from a lot of places and she was in hiding, which I was really intrigued to see the first time I did it. So I actually have a very in-depth inner children meditation that you can do. It's a lot. You're going to see a lot of stuff, and but it's important. You know, like the more you reclaim soul fragments, the stronger you become, and the stronger your will to thrive becomes. The more clear you are, the more rooted you are in your purpose. It's worth it. It's scary at first to do, but heal your inner children. Go get your children. Go get your inner children, right? My YouTube channel is called The Goddess Keys. So yeah, definitely subscribe to that. I actually put all the TikTok lives I do on there. So if folks are like just coming in, you know, they all like live on YouTube and stuff. That's like where all the longer form content is. So the will to thrive is not easy. You have to, first of all, find the time to do this stuff, to see yourself as a multidimensional person, or I should say a multidimensional being, and choose to invest in yourself. And then you're not just, you know, reclaiming yourself in your subconscious, but also your body. So there's a fallacy in a lot of times in like the light worker community that when we're ascending, it's all consciousness. You know, there's this thing where they talk about all is mind, you know, in the Hermetic sciences, they talk about all is mind or all is mental. And that's a fallacy. We are moving into an era of embodiment. Okay, so yes, we are expanding our consciousness, we're reclaiming our consciousness, but literally our body's ascending. It's hard work. And that's why I ended up writing the book, The Grind Culture Detox. And so if you are somebody who's like looking to get out of the hamster wheel of toxic productivity, that's the first step a lot of times to your ascension path, because you have to reclaim your time from all the busy work that you were trained to do, and put that into your ascension path and your deprogramming process, okay? And so you'll find that you'll get really triggered and you'll get really stuck if you're not able to detox and deprogram grind culture and toxic productivity. Once you're able to do that, your healing path is going to come with a lot more flow and a lot more fun. But a huge part is detoxing that toxic productivity sort of stuff. And a lot of that is the self-worth issues, the low self-worth issues that we're programmed to have, that we're only valuable if we're producing for someone else. And it's not really gotten us very far. It's gotten a small section of humanity pretty far, like if we talk about like the 1%, but we all know hardworking people who are broke. So hard work doesn't mean success or that you're going to be valued, that sort of thing. So that's a huge deprogramming process that we do. And that takes a lot of will, because a lot of times you're going to be in situations where you're like, well, if I quit this job that I hate, that is draining my energy, then how am I going to pay my bills and all that kind of stuff. But you move from surviving to thriving. Okay, a lot of us have had scripts, life scripts written for us to basically be enslaved. And I don't necessarily mean the clink shackles or whatever, but a lot of us have it in our DNA to be bridges for certain beings on this planet, to give all of our ideas, to give all of our creativity, to give all of our life force to beings who are going to build upon the backs of us. That's kind of been the script that's been written for us. When we decide to move into the will to thrive, we are connecting with a script of ascension. Okay, so a lot of times the script where we are basically in codependent patterning and we're being the bridges for beings who have exploited us and our lineages for a really, really long time, we're basically following a script for death a lot of times. And it's not just the death of our bodies, but it's also like the death and the woundedness of our spirits, okay? And the fragmentation of that. But when we decide, you know what, I intend the will to thrive, we start reclaiming our power and we connect with a new script. And that's going to take place in our heart space. That's why so much has been done in the false matrix to wound our hearts, right? To close our hearts, to add armoring to our hearts. Now, when I say open your heart and that sort of thing, that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have boundaries, right? Because there are beings who are going to take advantage of, it's that whole like empath narcissist relationship that you think about. There's a reason why like empaths and narcissists magnetize to each other. And that's a lot of times because like narcissists are seeking out bridges, people who will be bridges for them so that they can take their energy, all right? So it's a very energetic kind of thing. So a lot of us as empaths, we're learning about the difference between armoring our hearts and then also having healthy boundaries to support us with vibing with the people who are going to pour into us and appreciate us. And a lot of times the reason why you may have been attracted to narcissists or narcissists may have been attracted to you is because it was scripted that way, right? You were embodying a script that was predestined for you to be another bridge for a being who would siphon your energy. And, when you decide, I no longer consent to that script, you are able to access a script of ascension. And it's going to be found within your heart space. Your heart space is actually connected to your soul hologram. That's why so much has been done to get us to not truly know what love is. A lot of us are deprogramming this idea that love means codependency. Love means self-sacrifice. Love means that you go last all the time. That's not true love, because like if you're not valuing and honoring yourself, the world will just be a mirror to that, and then you will instruct others to not value or honor you, But there's been so much programming that's been done around getting us mixed up and confused about the true essence and meaning of love. And love is a place of non-attachment, you know, and that's a really brave thing to embark on in our current society when we have so many attachments, okay? Once again, it's embodying that will to thrive. And the more you reclaim different soul fragments and different pieces of yourself, the easier it becomes to do that. Something that happens as you start healing and activating your DNA, it takes a while and it takes a lot of conscious intent. It takes a lot of deprogramming, and it also takes a lot of healing karma and removing etheric implants. If you want to learn more about that, check out my YouTube. And then if you're ready to do the mindfulness and all that kind of stuff, then there are meditations for you that I can provide you through the Patreon community that I've created. But all that to say, there is something that happens where we start transcending the 7 chakras and we move into something called will centers. So as I mentioned earlier, the 7 chakras have been utilized a lot of times to energy harvest, just take from us. So a lot of us, especially if we represent the feminine energy, we are going to notice that there's been a lot of wounding in our sacral chakra area. That's because that's the source of like our creation and creativity, and the false matrix has been used to siphon and steal dreams and that kind of stuff. Our voices, our will to speak has been siphoned from us. Our willpower in general, our inner sun, our ability to shine, to think that we're worthy of shining, a lot of times that's been siphoned. Grounding's a really big thing with people who consider themselves like light workers or star seeds. A lot of times we haven't felt at home on this planet, even though a lot of us are very ancient beings on this planet. And somehow we've gotten it to the point where we don't feel at home, and that's a lot of times because our sense of grounding has been siphoned from us. And this has happened way back in our ancestry. And until we get to the root cause and make peace with that karma, we just keep perpetuating being ungrounded, being ungrounded, being ungrounded, not being home here over and over again. However, will centers, as we start going through a lot of deprogramming, we get these will centers that are that start actually being installed. We have to, in order to get there though, we have to do a lot of healing as it relates to the fall of Atlantis and the Anunnaki. If you want to learn more about the Anunnaki, I have a video, a pretty long download on YouTube about that. So definitely check that out. And I go into like all that kind of stuff. But it's basically overcoming that bridge patterning. A lot of y'all are probably married to or have a boss of Anunnaki ancestry. That's just kind of the way it works. And a lot of times it's because you are healing karma for your bloodline as it relates to that. So you might, if you're experiencing the narcissistic patterning, or if you are healing or recovering from the narcissistic patterning. Hey, Chelsea. Hey, Shani 9191. So yeah, if you are recovering from the narcissistic patterning, it's a lot of times because you're healing Anunnaki karma. Okay, so start really looking at it from a more broader perspective. There are people in your life where you may have had soul contracts to just give all your power away to them. And you're not doing it consciously, but it's happening on a very unconscious level. Thank you, Taylor. So let's talk about will centers. So as we start healing the Anunnaki karma, as we start healing the codependency, as we start stepping out of the trauma timelines, once we get really serious about it, and once again, that's the will to thrive, you need to cultivate the will before these will centers come online. And that's a daily thing, okay? But these will centers, let's talk about them. So there's a will center related to your first chakra. And a lot of times we consider the first chakra to be the root, but I actually want us to go further down. Let's go down into past the feet. A lot of times they call it the Earth Star chakra. And I used to be team Earth Star chakra, but I have found that there has actually been a lot of misinformation about the Earth Star chakra. If you look at the Earth Star chakra, a lot of times it has a Merkaba patterning to it. And I did a live on this, and it's on YouTube if you're interested, where I go into aligning like the Merkaba patterning with hexes and curses, and how Merkabas have been used as a really big tool for energy harvesting through the Anunnaki. Okay, so any of the angular sort of sacred geometry that we see that has these like really sharp angles, it's actually the geometry of the Anunnaki. And this is what they used to do this bridge patterning and the siphoning of energy and the energy harvesting. So we need to deprogram this from our consciousness as well as through our fields. So a lot of us are running hex patterning in our fields, and we don't know it. We just inherited it from our ancestry. And it just means like if we have this stuff running in our fields, we're just kind of giving our power away on the unconscious, in the unconscious. Even if we don't mean to, it's just happening. And sometimes we have pyramids running in our DNA where it just says, oh, you're going to be on the bottom. Okay, it doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter how hard you try. Like something's going to happen where you're going to get on the bottom of this pyramid. Other people have it where it's like, oh, I'm always going to be on the top of the pyramid. So there are these things that are happening on a DNA level, and it's because we're not all from the same places. Okay, I know like we got taught in school that we're all equal, and we all are a part of source consciousness, don't get me wrong, but people have different geometry running in their field, all right? And until we deconstruct that and unveil that and make it known, we're not going to be playing on a level playing field. So with all that saying, these will centers are coming online for folks who are doing the work to heal this karma and heal this patterning. And it's going to make it a lot easier for us to bring our dreams into the physical and the material reality, because that's what we want. You know, a lot of us know that we're really strong, capable creator beings. And what's happening a lot of times is that we are, we're not quite sometimes able to fully bring it into the physical for some reason. And a lot of times it's because we're subconsciously giving our power away. Okay, so how do we stop that? And so that goes through the will center. So the will centers from your first chakra or your grounding chakras is going to be the will to ground. So if you're working with the Earth Star chakra, I would recommend deprogramming that. And instead of calling it the Earth Star chakra, or instead of envisioning your grounding chakra as that Merkaba, remember that's just a great way to get energy harvested off of. We're actually supposed to have 7 grounding chakras, y'all. 7. But somehow we're being taught in the New Age spiritual community that we have 1, and that it's like shaped like a hex. Like what's up with that? So start envisioning 7 grounding chakras underneath your feet. If you're having a hard time visualizing that, it's because you gave it away. That happens a lot. We literally give our information and our knowledge to ground away in the unconscious. So just know that there's some karma that needs to be healed. There's some ancestral patterning that needs to be healed as it relates to that, and put in that work to do it, and intend to ground, intend the will to ground. And as you start healing this, start healing your DNA, and it does take time, I'm not gonna lie, it's not a everyday kind of thing, but you are a powerful creator, and your intention sets certain things into motion. And if you get like really serious about doing this every day, it supports you with bringing these online in a quicker way. So the will center for the first chakra is the will to ground. The will center for the second chakra is the will to move Kundalini. A lot of us are not moving Kundalini because we're stuck in sexual woundedness and shame. A lot of that has to do with the wounded inner child. A lot of that has to do with just a lot of the ways our creative energy and our sexual energy has been wounded and siphoned in the false matrix, okay? So a lot of us are not moving Kundalini, and if we don't move Kundalini, we can't really burn our karma off. We can't transmute or transform without the Kundalini. So start thinking of the Kundalini energy as like the energy of the phoenix, the way this, the transformative thing that happens with the phoenix, where it burns itself up to be reborn. So, a lot of times on the spiritual path, we get a lot of horror stories about the Kundalini activation. Sometimes people will be like, yeah, like they had their Kundalini activation and then they went insane, that sort of thing. And that does happen, but a lot of times that's because folks are running electrical Kundalini. There's a difference between electrical Kundalini and magnetic Kundalini. So once again, we're detoxing a lot of electrical programming. And so we want to make sure we're running the right fire within our second chakra. So intending the will to move Kundalini to heal from sexual woundedness and shame, and to reclaim our sexual energy and to reclaim our creative energy. That's the second will center. The third will center is the will to intend. The will to create your or to say what's going to go down in your reality. Some of us have had this stripped from us as well. You know, we've been like trained to kind of follow and shuffle through what everybody else is doing, right? And so the will to thrive puts a stop to that, and we cultivate the will to intend, which is our solar plexus, that fire, that lion energy, that lioness energy. And we say, you know what? No, I create my reality. And that becomes a lot easier to do when you reclaim your inner children, okay? The will to love, okay? Our heart chakra, and not the Disney stuff that they taught us, okay? All that Disney programming, all those romantic comedies, they got to go. We got to detox and deprogram all that kind of stuff. Love without codependency. Love through a place of sovereignty. Love starting with yourself, all right? Loving yourself enough to get out of self-destructive patterning. Doesn't matter how you look to the outside world. Doesn't matter who gotta go from your reality, okay? That's the will to love, okay? Because the more you de-armor your heart, the more access you actually get to your soul, your true soul essence, your higher self. That's hard. That's really hard work. So intending the will to love and learning what love is. What is universal love? Okay, what is love? What does love look like outside of the false matrix? The fifth will center that will activate is the will to create. That's that what is it? Throat chakra. That throat chakra stuff. A lot of us have had throat chakra attacks, but this is like a portal. The throat is a portal, okay? Word is bond, as they say. When we think about spelling, yeah, even like being able to spell, and we think about casting spells, like if all is working in alignment, what we say and what comes out of our voice is what is created, okay? And the will to create supports us with that, and reclaiming all energy that's been siphoned, deprogramming any blocks, any karmic storylines from our throat chakra helps us with the will to create. Then we have the sixth will center, the will to perceive, which, you know, this third eye has been so much under attack. And that's why it's really good to start working with your heart first, because so much has been done to put the veils of illusion over our eyes. The heart has a really great way of filtering through the BS though, okay? And if we can really listen through our hearts and act through our hearts, it's actually a built-in BS detector. It's not as like soft and vulnerable as we've been trained to think. It's actually where like our true power comes from as we ascend, is through our heart space. The will to perceive, the will to see past the veils of illusion. It doesn't matter what people are telling you. You know, a really great example is, I was reading my son this book on, he was like really interested in the Titanic. So we were reading this story about the Titanic. And in this story, like everybody at the time was saying, this is the unsinkable ship. This is the ship that will never fail. This is like the ride of a lifetime. And it was just like, everybody was in this veil of illusion that the Titanic was infallible. And, you know, for y'all who know the story of the Titanic, that was definitely not the case, okay? But everybody was under this spell, this word spell, and this perception spell of the Titanic is unsinkable. The Titanic is the safest ship in the world. And even when they were trying to get people off this boat, because they knew the boat was going to sink, a lot of people were not taking it seriously because they were under the spell of perception, because they were listening to what everybody else was saying was happening, okay? Which is like a really great thing for us to keep in mind, especially as we're on a lot of the social media platforms, okay? The will to perceive, the will to see for ourselves, okay? And have all those veils of illusion taken away from our eyes. And the last is the seventh, the will to know. So the will to be connected to no source, to no creator consciousness, to not get it from a book, to not get it from a guru, to not get it from a religion, but to tap in to source connection. And that's where we're going. You know, as we strip these layers and these veils of illusion, that's where we're headed. Okay. And these are the will centers that are going to be coming online. It does require a great deal of work on our parts to get there, and a lot of karma healing. But we get to this point where we stop being directed by the powers that be, and we embody that power once again. Okay, and we come back to our goddess selves, which has always been there. It's just taking off all the veils, peeling off all the layers to get us back to who we truly are. Okay, so I'm going to end it for there today. Like, just really think about, first of all, who are the people in your life that are saying, that make it difficult for you to embody the will to thrive. Start there and be really bold about getting those cast of characters out of your life. So a lot of these people were in your life to play certain karmic roles to teach you about your self-worth. At some point though, they gotta go, right? So if they are impeding upon your will to thrive, start cleaning house. Any daily activities that are impeding on your will to thrive, setting the intention to clear those things. And it's not going to be done in, it's not a one and done. I know when I first started this journey, I was like, I thought I was going to have I thought I was going to be ascended in 1 year, you know, and it ain't that way. Like, this is like, we're laying the groundwork for several years, you know, so this is a process, and it's very rewarding, but it's very difficult. And reclaiming our will to thrive in a society that tells us sometimes to do everything but that is essential. And, you know, activating your inner lion, activating your inner lioness in order to do that. And if you're interested in some tools and jewels, like more on a one-on-one basis for how to do that, then connect with me. I will put my email address in the description, but you can just send me an email at heatherarcherconsulting@gmail.com. That's heatherarcherconsulting@gmail.com if you want to do like more of a one-on-one journey with me, and I'd be happy to connect with you. But I have different levels depending upon where you're at, levels of access to support you on this journey. Ultimately, you are the key, right? Sometimes help is helpful on this journey, but at the end of the day, it's all you, right? And so I'm sending you so much love, joy, peace, prosperity, and abundance. Thank you, Tay Taylor. Oh, let me answer this one question that I just saw. So Diane Prince, if you're still there, how do you know if you have electrical or magnetic kundalini? You know, that's a good question. I actually forgot I was gonna maybe do this, but one thing I've done on my ascension path is gotten rid of all my tarot cards, my oracle cards, all that kind of stuff, because I found it was just kind of getting in the way. So like, I would do my tarot deck and I would keep getting 5 of Swords this, 10 of Pentacles reverse that, 7 of Cups reverse that, you know, certain cards that just said, ooh, you in danger, girl, something's going on, you need to change something, right? But I would never be able to get like any more concrete information than that. After trying and testing a whole bunch of oracle decks and tarot cards and not fully getting that connection to what I needed, because we're ascending consciousness, we're ascending emotionally, we're ascending physically. So there's a lot of stuff going on that we cannot even see or perceive, okay? And until we get our third eyes back online, like full force, with all the veils of illusion, like sometimes we need help. So I have found, I just ended up creating my own divination system, tested it for a few years, and got to the point where I'm not going to say it's like perfect, like everybody's going to have their own special sauce for doing things, but it's been really comprehensive for me, and it's been really helping me on my ancestral healing journey and my genetic path cutting journey, and to really getting specific about things I need to tend to that I might not be able to perceive in this 3D reality. And I'm pretty multidimensional, like I can tap in, but at the same time, there's certain things that are just happening like way beneath the surface that we got to get to. so many veils of illusion have been placed upon humanity that we're getting through, and it's hundreds of thousands of years worth. Okay, so sometimes we need help. So I've created a divination system that's about a little over 200 cards. It might be like 220 cards. I have a DIY toolkit on my Patreon under my genetic path cutting tier, and the genetic path cutting tier essentially is to get you to read your own Akashic records, know what karma needs to be healed in your ancestry on your own. That being said, we need help sometimes, and so a lot of these cards have been channeled through my consciousness, but also from a lot of the studying that I've been doing on the Aligning with Earth website as well. And they tell a story. And so what I'm actually going to do, I was going to do this and I completely forgot. I got in my own little vibe. But since I got that question around electrical kundalini and magnetic kundalini, I'm going to do just the quickest reading around like how you might be, like just around electrical kundalini. So this is a whole other topic, but the electrical kundalini is basically, we have serpents that need to run within our etheric grid work, as it's called. Not all serpents are bad. You notice how like the snake symbolism has like a really weird duality. Like sometimes the snake is considered as evil, sometimes it's considered as a healer. That's like a real thing. That's the way I would describe electrical versus magnetic kundalini. So we need the serpents to hold what is known as the space between within our grid work. But what has happened, and you can even see this in the story of Jesus Christ, or not Jesus Christ, Adam and Eve, excuse me. You can even see it in the story of Adam and Eve, where the serpent like kind of whispers in Eve's ear and like gives her knowledge and that kind of stuff. And some people might say, oh, well, that's a good thing. The serpent was doing a good thing and, you know, putting her up on game. But a lot of times that serpent energy, the electrical serpent energy, a lot of times is kind of taking space within your etheric template and misdirecting you because it's so disconnected from source that it actually like thinks it's like a sort of god in a weird way. Like it was supposed to have one particular job and then it started doing another thing, and it created a lot of chaos energy. And so a lot of times, you know, these serpents in the etheric plane, these serpents are actually they're impersonating themselves a lot of times as godlike or of our higher selves, but really if we listen to that if we listen to their messaging enough, then it sends us on this path of dissension. And I guess like, you know, a good way to describe it is if you think about people who have like psychotic breaks and stuff like that, a lot of times they're like listening to the guidance and the beings that really want them to destroy themselves, you know, but like they sound like God. And, you know, if we don't have that level of discernment, it's really easy for us to fall for the okie doke. And most of us have done it in one way or another, but there are some more like extreme examples. So one way that I know is like, number one, if it happened in your ancestry. So if your ancestry got like misled by certain false consciousnesses, that it's very like, and that hasn't been healed, it's just definitely going to happen for you. Doesn't mean you're bad or anything like that. It's just in your, it's literally written in your DNA for it to happen until you disrupt it. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick reading on what comes up for electrical serpents. So what does the collective need to know at this time as it relates to electrical serpents? Okay, we've got a lot of stuff. Okay, so function is one card. So it goes back to that thing where I was talking about how the serpents that are electrical or that are running amok in your etheric field and getting you to do or embody certain things, they forgot their function. They forgot their place. They're not staying in their lane. So a lot of it is you creating order once again in your etheric template. And that means intending what is called true function. And type that into Aligning with Earth to know more about that. I also got mental body. So a lot of this is just around what ideas are you entertaining. We have different subtle bodies. We have the mental body, the creative body, the intuitive body, and We have the dream time body and the emotional body. It's like 5 bodies, not including our physical. And a lot of times our, things can be co-opted. So, sometimes our thoughts can be co-opted, or we're harboring thoughts that aren't even our own, that sort of thing. Temple of grounding. So it goes back to grounding. If you're grounded, and there are these things called healing temples that we can connect to in sleep state. And I go into this more on Patreon, and you can go and do your own journey on the Aligning with Earth website to learn more about this. But the more grounded that we are, and we really ground into the earth, and we ground into the aurora and the great central sun, the less likely we can fall for the okie doke. Because we are so held and protected when we remember our grounding. We're held and protected by our ascended ancestors. We're held and protected by the consciousness of earth. We're connected to our own I am presence. Like, we are indestructible once we remember and reclaim our power. If you are running electrical serpents in your field, a lot of times you're ungrounded, because they like get in between the space, like the spaces where the light doesn't come through, or like there's gaps or holes or trauma. That's where they come through. So if you're not grounded, it's really easy for that to happen. Forgiveness, this goes back to like us being able to master forgiveness. A lot of times these patterns will continue to happen if we don't forgive the karma, for not just on our behalf, but our ancestry. So without forgiveness, nothing changes. Some of us have lost the information on forgiving because our hearts are so armored, so that's really important. Disease. So just think about the medical symbol. You think about the 2 snakes on the medical symbol. There's a lot of interesting spell work. I'm not going to go too into it. By the way, I'm not a medical doctor, and this is only for entertainment purposes only. But I'm not going to go like super into it. I go into it more in more kind of closed community spaces. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes down etherically as it relates to disease. And there's a very specific reason why there are serpents on the all the hospital medical stuff. There's a reason. There's a connection. Lifting the veils of the dark. That's another card that was given as it relates to that. Tau. The Tau is how you connect to your soul hologram. That's always going to be through your heart space. Don't connect through your third eye. Don't connect through what you hear. Connect through your heart space. Try to always intuit there. That serpent energy, that electrical serpent energy, cannot get through your heart space. Like, that's your filter. I got creative, so that could also be related to creative body as well. Experimentation. So a lot of us have been kind of like, our DNA has been experimented on. As we start learning about this process of genetic path cutting and healing our ancestry, we come toe to toe with experimentation of our DNA, the slicing and dicing of our DNA. A lot of horrible things were done to our ancestors to create us and to create like the pared down versions of who we are today. And that's why we have so much like etheric technology within our DNA that we have to reconcile and heal. Angles. So this goes back to, a lot of the angles running in our field. So I mentioned like the hexes, the pyramids. A lot of this stuff is held together through certain serpent energy that has lost its connection to true function. And it helps us to be misguided and to have our energy siphoned and harvested. Clearing soul contracts, sometimes because we have unhealed trauma within our DNA as it relates to what is known as the false gods, or this serpent energy that has kind of run amok within our field. Because our ancestry may have fallen for the okie doke, then we still have certain oaths, vows, and agreements that might be in our DNA that need to be cleared. I have a clearing soul contracts toolkit on my Patreon for more information on that. And I work with folks one-on-one on clearing soul contracts. soul hologram, that's right at your heart space. So a big message that's coming through right now for the collective is connect with your heart space. De-armor your heart. That doesn't mean that you are a doormat if you de-armor your heart. You know, this is how you become a warrior. It's through your heart space, okay? And this is where you access your actual soul. Not beings that are saying that they're your soul or saying that they're source or higher consciousness. Are they speaking through your heart space? If they're not, they don't belong in your field. So your heart is going to discern for you. I got Central America, which is really interesting. I just did a lot of ancestral healing in Central America. Had a lot of ancestry, a lot of stuff related to the Anunnaki, a lot of stuff related to like pyramid technology that I had to process in Central America. So this might be for somebody who has ancestry in Central America, whether that's like the Mayans or the Aztec, that sort of thing. Check that out, or like the indigenous, indigenous folks in the Americas. Swapped parallel life. A lot of times these electrical serpents will do really weird stuff in the dreamtime realm. I've talked a little bit on my platforms around parallel lives, and it's kind of really annoying how deep this matrix can go. But sometimes, just like destiny swapping happens in this realm, as above, so below, sometimes we need to reconcile with swapped parallel lives. And the reason why that's important is because karma happens in the parallel too. So, karma happens in the, yeah, so karma happens in the parallel too. So you want to kind of work on that. And a lot of times these electrical serpents will move through parallel lives to mess you up. Diaphragm, so I talked about that earlier. This area, the breath of life, is what you want to cultivate with your diaphragm. A lot of times we're running weird codes of destruction, self-destruct mode. I talked about this earlier. So incorporating and cultivating your breath of life will support you with overriding tones of destruction. Also got destruction thought form. So a lot of times these electrical serpents are running patternsings and thought form related to destruction. Monad, that's your higher self. You're also going to access your monad both from your heart space as well as your crown chakra, and something that's called the crown lotus that begins to be cultivated. So yeah, and then the last card is spiral time. I got spiral time. So a lot of times when we're stuck in karmic loops, we're stuck in karmic cycles and time cycles that are not of benefit to us. So a really great way to reclaim our power is to become timeless in a sort of way, to live in the now, like all of the yogis say. When you're in a space of timelessness, a lot of times you can't be impacted, and you can't be led astray if you're in the now moment. And a lot is done to keep us in different timelines. And so, cultivating a state of timelessness and moving into spiral time does mean collapsing old karmic timelines, which goes back to like healing karma through forgiveness. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm going to leave off. I'm actually going to really leave off this time. But, if you want to learn more about that divination system, it's pretty dense, I'm not going to lie. But I do teach folks about how to do it on Patreon. And then I also do a reading for folks once a month, and then teach you and give you the steps on how to do it yourself. Because that's ideally what I want. I want people to do this stuff for themselves. But I'm also here to support. So all that to say, sending you lots of love. Happy summer solstice. And until we meet again, bye everyone.